So, I went into town the other day, and I was doing some shopping. I hate going into town. I think it's a shit place. But I was hungry, so I thought I may as well go and get something to eat while I'm there. I don't get slop like McDonald's or Burger King or anything like that. I don't even particularly like takeaway because it gives me indigestion, like an Indian or a Chinese or something. It gives me indigestion. And I think we've got our own food. We've got our own food. I'd much prefer to eat. But anyway, I decided to go into Subway. It's a sandwich. I went in there for a chicken sandwich. So I went in there, and I saw these two Indian chaps working there, right? Which is fine. I mean, I'm just there for a sandwich. And so I went up to the counter and I basically ordered my sandwich. But I noticed that they really struggled to understand English, right? They really struggled to speak English. But it's fine. I can be patient. I can, talk as clear as I possibly can. But yeah, I don't know what else I can do. But yeah, I got my order and it got toasted, and then he brought it to the other end. So there's one chap doing the order, and the other chap who was working at the till. I pay for it by card, and then I put my card away, and this guy just looks at me and he's like, "You have to pay, sir." And I said, "Yes, I know. I just did. I just did pay. Okay." And he's like, "No, sir. You have to pay." And I said, "I just did pay. Check the screen. It should say paid or unpaid, and it should say paid because I just paid. Okay." And then he goes, No, you no leave. Don't leave until you pay, sir." Comes round the fucking thing to square up to me, right? And I'm going, all right, keep your distance from me. What did I just say? I just said I paid, okay? I paid through the card reader, all right? So go back round, check the screen. And he's going, no, you stay, you pay. And I turned round to the other bloke who was, and I turned round to him and I said, "Can you tell your mate, please, that I have paid?" And then he goes, "Sorry, sir?" So I'm literally like red in the face by this point. "Can you tell your friend here I have paid? Yes?" He looks at the screen. He turns to his mate and they start talking amongst themselves in Indian. And his mate goes, "There's no apology." He just turns around, goes back round the thing and just starts ignoring me and, because he knew he was in the wrong, right? And I said, "You two need to learn how to fucking speak English. I'm not coming back here. You've lost yourself a customer. You need to speak fucking English when in England. You can fuck right off." So I left. Normies are starting to notice, right? Normies are starting to notice the situation. I have noticed the situation for years, right? Ethnic fatigue is not new to me. I am absolutely sick of seeing them everywhere, right? Now, so there's only Indians working at Subway, right? I think they go into a business, they take over a business, and then they only hire other people who look and sound just like them, right? So if you're a white Anglo-Saxon, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance anymore. So I think these people are coming here to colonize us, right? There's no two ways about it. They're coming here to fucking colonize us, right? They're taking over our land, they're taking over our companies and our businesses, and they are only hiring their own kind. They're only hiring, like in this situation, the boss is only hiring Indian workers, okay? You walk around any town or city, right? And you notice that if you see like maintenance workers or something, you see like roadworks or stuff like that, you see that all of them working there are fucking black people, right? A bunch of fucking black people is what I noticed the other day. Not inner city blacks, like Nigerian, Somali blacks. So I'm thinking, the boss must be a Nigerian, and he's only handpicked other Nigerians to work for him. Okay? I know young Anglo-Saxon men who are qualified in doing these fields of work, but they will not get hired by anybody simply because their bosses are not English. And like I say, they won't get hired because they're not Indian, they're not Nigerian, they're not ethnically appropriate for the job. And that's the situation here. They're coming here, they're colonizing, and they're only choosing to work with their own people, their own kind. They don't even know how to speak English. I mean, why would you even bother if you're only going to work with your own kind? It's that's the situation we're in. That's the situation. So you have I know these young lads, they're sort of chavs and stuff, but they're just sort of hanging around, lingering around. They've got fuck all to do because they can't get any work, because employers just won't hire native Anglo-Saxon men. They just will not be hired. Now, if you've got an Anglo-Saxon employer, right, he's probably thinking, well, I've got to make sure that I employ as much diversity as possible. Maybe a handful of white people, but I've got to make sure to hire some blacks, hire some brown people, etc. Asians. When it comes to a Nigerian employer, for example, he does not have to worry about positive discrimination. He doesn't have to worry about that. Because he's black, and as far as they're concerned, black people can't be racist to whites. So he has no obligation to hire whites, okay? That's why you come into these businesses that are not like a Subway. A Subway is not an ethnic, restaurant. It's a place where you go and get a fucking sandwich, right? But if you've got brown people working there, Indian people working there, it's more than likely that the boss is Indian himself. And that's how they colonize. That's how they're colonizing us. They're taking over our land, they're taking over our companies, and they're taking over our businesses. And that's the situation here. Okay? My cousin, I visited my cousin the other day, and she said that sending her son to primary school now. And she said that he's really struggling. He's really struggling to. He doesn't have any friends, right? He doesn't have any friends. He's really struggling to cope. And I said, why is that? What's going on? So she said to me, well, he's the only English boy there. And I said, okay, what you need to do, you need to get him out of the school. You need to homeschool him, because he does not, obviously, you have people who come here to colonize. They're not here to assimilate, and he will be targeted and he will be bullied throughout his entire school life, okay? Just for being a white Anglo-Saxon native, okay? If he tries to assert himself, or if he tries to retaliate, he will be the one with the bollocking. He will be the one, and he'll probably, you'll probably be brought down to school for some kind of, they'll call it racism. They'll call it some kind of racist attack or something, when it's not, when it's just a young white boy trying to defend himself, okay? Take him out of the school, have him homeschooled. Like, he's going to have a completely fucked up, education. He's going to have a completely fucked up life at school. The schooling system is probably just going to teach him how to be, how to hate being white and English. If he's not with his own kind, he's not going to be able to, he's not going to know who he really is. You know what I mean? The school is going to cater to the foreign majority, right? They're going to be speaking all these different languages to cater to those people. He is going to be further alienated because he doesn't speak those languages. He cannot connect to anybody there, right? They're all of different cultures, different religions, and all that stuff. And they will bully him for it just because he is white, Anglo-Saxon, and indigenous to this land. And I said, take him out of school, homeschool him. Homeschool him. And she said, well, I can't do that because of my job. His life is more important than your job, okay? You can go on the dole. Who gives a shit by this point? Who fucking gives a shit by this point? What matters is his education and how he develops, later on through life and stuff. That's what matters, He's a perfectly healthy young boy, He's, blue-eyed, blonde hair, very, very good. But but yes, he will struggle throughout his entire time at school. He will struggle. Now, I'll be honest. I struggled socially, and when I was at school, all the way through. But the difference was, I could assert myself. All right, I could assert myself amongst the other kids. He is in a position where he can't assert himself. If he does assert himself, he will, there'll be a lot of backlash, okay? A situation where he'll get himself expelled, and there'll be a serious backlash, and probably even get death threats from the fucking families or whatever. That's how it is now. So, yeah, it's an absolute mess. It's a fucking mess. We need to be able to assert ourselves, But another issue, if he stayed at school, he later on he'll probably be confused of whether he's a boy or girl or something. So that's another thing that's another thing to think about. If I had kids, I'd never have them go to school or anything. Regime approved curriculum, and they'll just get fucking brainwashed by absolute bullshit. Basically, there's a book that's like about the black history of Britain, right? Trying to suggest that black people built Stonehenge and all this shit, which is obviously not true. It's not trendy to have common sense in this day and age. We need to assert ourselves much more in this country, because we're just gonna go extinct. We're just gonna fade away and go extinct, right? A few years ago, during the time of COVID, right, I was walking home from the pub, I'd been out drinking and stuff, and I was going home, and it was sort of late at night, and I'm walking through the woods, as there's like a path through the woods, so I'm walking home, and this African chap comes out of the fucking bushes at me, proper like Somali accent or whatever, like proper fucking a skinny. He's a fucking skinny, right? He comes up to me and he says, he has this knife drawn. He's coming up to me, and I'm saying, "Stay the fuck away from me! Stay the fuck away from me!" But he's screaming at me and shouting and saying that I've taken his phone, right? And I'm like, I've never seen you before. I don't have your phone. Fuck right off, okay? But and he's threatening me, and he's going, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you, man." And then he says to me, "This is my country now, bitch. This is my country now." So I went home, right? I thought, I'm not going to stick around. I'm not going to lose my life over nothing. But I thought, I can't let this go. This man feels like he feels entitled to this country, and he feels that it's okay to threaten people with knives, So I thought, not far from the woods, there's a fucking preschool, right? And an old people's home. Not far from there. Let's just say I gave him a good incentive to leave, let's just say, and yeah, he disappeared and all his stuff was gone. Basically, he was literally camping in the woods in a tent. I went through all his shit and I found all these knives and stuff like that, and I fucking took all of them. I basically confiscated the lot. We can't have someone like that hanging around the woods near a preschool and a fucking old people's home. So I took it upon myself to encourage him to clear off, let's say. Okay? So, but that's what we need, man. That's what this country's been built on. Proud men. Proud fucking warriors. For 2,000 years, this little tiny fucking island has been raped and pillaged by people who want a piece of it. But yeah, that's the situation. You know, whites are being kicked out of the workforce. Basically, they're being rejected from work. They're being, these people come here and they try and intimidate us, and we need to assert ourselves. We need to make it clear that we're indigenous to this country, right? We're indigenous to this land, right? And if we want to continue to exist in our homeland, then we're going to have to assert ourselves. It's a fucking mess, you know? It's a fucking mess. And it's really the boomers' fault for letting it get to this point, you know? And you have retarded normies who are only just noticing, and they're calling it ethnic fatigue. And I mean, I've been noticing for fucking years. I said way back, like fucking 10 years ago, when I was at college, I used to say it's probably not a good idea to let any more in. It's probably not a good idea, you know. They're coming here and they're colonising anyway, and I mean, probably shouldn't let any more in. It's probably time to turn things round, you know. But I think it was probably fucked before then anyway. Look at the fucking death toll. The death toll is mental. And all the attacks and all the fucking grooming gangs that we've had to suffer over the fucking years, it's ridiculous. And nobody fucking cares. Nobody gives a shit. It's like it doesn't matter. That it's all acceptable to let our people go extinct, to be totally replaced. The people higher up in government literally don't care. They don't give a fuck. If any of them fuck up really badly, oh, that's all right. I'm getting a shitload of taxpayers' money anyway, so when I retire, I can move into one of my 4 houses, and that'll be perfectly fine. Who gives a shit if I fuck up this country? And you got black and brown people, Asian people, who are in our parliament. They're in positions of power, right? And so if, you know, like if it was a Pakistani who had who owned a property, right, and he got in contact with the MP, who is also another Pakistani, and he's like, I want to build an Islamic centre, and they go, oh yeah, approved. But if an indigenous Anglo-Saxon person had property and wanted to build something, they would immediately get shut down and go, nope. It is really hard to get planning permission, but if you're foreign, don't worry about it. You can do what you like, innit? Of course you can, mate. You can do whatever the fuck you like. Who gives a shit? Our tolerance is our downfall. You know, we are too tolerant, right? And we have allowed in people from different cultures and different backgrounds who are extremely intolerant, okay? Like, we should not be sending foreign aid anywhere, right? We don't have the money to look after our own people. We shouldn't be allied with anybody outside because we have our own issues. We have our own conflicts here. We have our own enemies here in this country. So who gives a fuck what's going on outside this country? We have our own problems that we need to sort out. Now, if there was a situation in Western Europe, right, and we had to become refugees, say there was, I don't know, a cataclysmic event that completely wiped out Britain, right, and we were refugees and we had to leave, right, and we had to move somewhere, you know, do you honestly believe that anyone outside of Europe, outside of Western Europe, would give a shit about helping us? No, they absolutely would not. They couldn't give a fuck. Our brothers would let us in. The Germans would let us in. The Swedes would let us in. The French, yeah, they'll let us in. Fucking Norwegians, you know, Italians, the Spanish, the Portuguese, they'll let us in. No one in Eastern Europe would let us in. No one anywhere else in the world would let us in. The Americans would let us in. The Canadians would let us in. The New Zealanders, yeah, they'll let us in. But the Muslims, nope. The Jews, nope. Ukraine, do you honestly believe that the Ukrainians, if they weren't at war, right, and we were refugees and we showed up to Ukraine and said, oh, please, sir, can we come and settle in Ukraine? They'll go, no, fuck off. No, we don't want you here. If we went to Israel, right, and we said, oh, please, Jews, please let us in. You know, we're in trouble. You know, we're refugees. We need to settle somewhere. The Jews would just go, oh, no, look at the goys. We can't have the goys here, can we? Ooh. What about the fucking Pakistanis or the Indians? They won't fucking let us in. If we move to any fucking Muslim country as, like, refugees, they'll call for a fucking jihad and have us all executed, mate. These people would not do the same for us. Why should we do the same for them? We need a reconquista. We need to start taking back our properties, our businesses, our government, right? And we need to make it clear they're not welcome here anymore. We're sick of you. We're fucking sick of you. Our tolerance is our weakness. It's the weakness of Western civilization, Western culture. That's our problem, is our tolerance. We need to be intolerant and we need to assert ourselves.
Who was most of all responsible for the 1939 to 45 war?
I'll tell you exactly. Hitler began it by driving east, and he would undoubtedly have destroyed communist Russia in so doing. We intervened and declared war to prevent him doing it. And the result is that Britain today is tossed to and fro between America and Russia. We've lost the empire, we've lost our position, and we had 25 million Europeans killed. And I'm prouder than anything in my life of having done my utmost to stop that suicidal war which has destroyed Great Britain.
Where you said that this was simply a Jewish financier's quarrel. You don't think at that time we had a moral choice to take of whether we were going to try and prevent all that Hitler was doing?
A clear and fair question which I'll certainly answer. No, we had not, and I'll tell you why. When Mr. Gladstone wanted to have a war with Turkey in order to stop the Armenians being badly treated, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Disraeli, a Jew, opposed him with success. And that's traditional British policy. If we run around the world fighting wars for anyone who's having a bad time anywhere, you'll never have peace in the rest of your time.
Right.
And you'll have world death because now you'll fight with nuclear weapons.